Hey everyone, welcome back to the Product Pivot. I'm Santi and I have my phenomenal co-host Megan with me. Today we are so excited to have Christina on the podcast. I won't spoil too much because I'm going to let her do an introduction to herself, but very, very excited to have her. So Christina, I'm going to flip it over to you.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Aragon. I am currently an associate product manager. I'm early on in my career and I'm excited to share my journey.
We're so excited to have you on the podcast today. We haven't had the opportunity to talk to many associate PMs because the role is kind of fizzling out. We're not seeing a ton of associate PMs out there. And so I'm super excited to learn a little bit about what you do when an associate PM role is really like in 2025. And then also what your journey was like getting that role if you're open to sharing it.
Yeah, of course. So I'll start a little bit sharing my background, college and whatnot, and how I got to the associate role. So I went into college. I wanted to become a civil engineer, actually. I didn't want to do anything software related. Um, but I really enjoyed video games growing up, Legos, everything. I just loved building. Then I got to a couple hard classes and said, ooh, this is not for me. I don't want to build bridges for the rest of my life. So my advisor actually recommended I go into software because of my background with, me liking video games. I like to build, yada, yada. Got into software engineering, realized I didn't really like coding. So I mean, I really enjoyed the process of software engineering, and luckily I stuck with it because I took a product management class, and that's where I really found my niche, I guess, within the space. So from there, we had our senior projects, and I had my group, and we worked with um, someone externally outside. We had to work on a project with them. Anyway, I took on the product management role, got an internship through him. It was supposed to go to full time, but the funding wasn't there. So I had to go into the 2023 job market, which at the time wasn't great at all for software engineering degrees. Um, it got to the 6 month, 7 month mark, didn't get interviews, didn't really get any job offers. I was like, what's going on? Especially early on in our college years, we're like promised jobs and whatnot. Anyway, I decided to take it upon myself to network with different people because I always hear it's all about who you know. So I would actually do cold outreach to people who are alumni from my school and whatnot. Or I was part of Greek life, so I reached out to people just randomly across the country, see if they had anything. Stumbled upon a BDR job, actually, a business development representative, which is sales, something I never pictured myself going into. Um, was there for 8 months, and then I finally moved on to associate product role at a different company. So super non-linear journey, but everything happens for a reason. So yeah.
You're an ideal guest for this podcast. That's exactly why we do this. That is such a cool journey. There's so many things I want to dig into, but I will ramble. So I'll kind of get us moving in the direction. So you've done many different things in your career, starting in engineering, then software engineering, BDR, then finally that PM role. So wearing all these different hats and the things that you've done, how has that helped shape you as a product person today and like that associate PM role that you're in?
Yeah, for sure. So what's awesome about having that engineering degree and a sales background a little bit is that I have a lot more holistic view of what goes on, I guess, behind the scenes of a company. So, for example, engineers sometimes don't understand what sales has to go through to even keep their job. Same with sales; they have no idea what engineering does. They just think, oh, they just code and yada yada. But it's really not that simple. Sometimes a button can take hours on hours, and yeah, and it's just being a PM, it allows me just to have different perspectives with different parts of the organization. And I can kind of help empathize with both parts. I understand why sales, why they want this feature to come out because they want to sell things, they want to hit their quota. Engineers sometimes can't do it that easy. And it's just it takes a lot of understanding and communication. So yeah,
Really want to dig into that a little bit more
yeah,
because as the PM, we're often the middle person, right? We are the relationship builder with every single role, and often the communicator with every single role, often in the middle, and sometimes part of those negative conversations as well when we have to say no. So I'm curious, how do you use that background to communicate with engineers what sales has to go through, or sales what the engineers have to go through? Because you do have that background and you don't necessarily have to learn from engineers what they have to go through and learn from sales what they have to go through. You already know. So I guess I'm kind of curious how you use that background to have those conversations.
Yeah, communicating with engineers, sometimes you just have to speak their language, and same with sales. So bridging that gap, in the way I communicate, it just kind of you just almost have to flip a switch in your brain. So, for example, sales, they don't really care about the technical stuff. They just want to know when it comes out, how they can sell it, what's the go to market strategy, yada, yada, yada. So, you just have to be, or the way I go about it, I just try to be as concise as I can. Just tell them what they need to know so that they can, get on with their day because they tend to, be more fast paced. Whereas engineers, they tend to, um, want things more specific. What are timeframes that they want? What are specific things that the business needs? Just being a little bit more technical with that communication. So I think it just depends on the person who I'm talking to and just the way I kind of format my words, I think. I think it just all comes down to the persona and the person themselves because you can have an engineer who's super extroverted and they just want to talk all day every day. Or you have someone who's introverted and they just really want to hear what they need to hear and just go about their day. So I think it also just depends on the person. I hope that kind of
So
answered your
true.
question.
That's so true, though, because I've experienced that as well. Like some salespeople want to chat, and some salespeople just want a timeline. Just depends on who you're talking to. Like, give me the date that I can sell it. Tell me how much like it's gonna help my quota, and like just give me the numbers and tell me. That's all I want to know. And other ones just want to know, like you said, they go to market strategy, right? They want to know everything, but other people are just too busy. So it just depends on the person. So that's a great call out. Santi, anything to add there?
I'm just laughing because you nailed it. Like,
She's on
it's
it.
so true. Like, there's just certain ways that people communicate best, and I find, successful conversations tend to be those that you can relate to that person in a way that they understand, you understand, you guys all get on the same page. We had a guest, in our last season, actually, it might have been season 1 now that I think about it, where adaptive communication, was brought up, and he said, "It's not about what you're saying, it's about how they're receiving it and what they're hearing. So just adapting to that communication style to help get your point across and make sure everyone's aligned. It's a huge skill for people to have in general, but especially people. So love that note. Really good call out. So I do have another question that I want to dig into with you on kind of along the same vein here. In what is, the biggest adjustment moving from, like, building the thing to guiding the thing? So, when we asked that question, we're saying, you were an engineer, you were building product features, etcetera, and now you're into that product manager role where you're guiding the overall project, initiative, feature, product, what have you. What was what was that like for you? What was your biggest adjustment?
A lot of the introvert versus extrovert I guess, job skill set. When you're coding and whatnot, you tend to not really talk to people throughout the day. So, going from coding, not really interacting with many people to having very interactive heavy role, that was a little bit of an adjustment, but an adjustment that I really enjoyed because I am an extroverted person. Partly the reason why I didn't like software engineering is because I didn't want to be trapped in a room all day by myself. That's just not my personality. You know what? And that's okay. um, that was like one of the biggest things which drew me to product. Um, One of the things that I wasn't super keen on was you have to almost take the back seat, not the driver's seat. You help guide the engineers, but you don't help build it per se. And I think that was the hardest part for me. I love front end development. I love the pretty colors, the shapes, and to not really code it or help them with it. That was a little bit hard of a transition, but it's a transition and a sacrifice that I was willing to make. So it's
It's
awesome.
interesting. Do you find yourself ever, like, trying to give advice on, like, how long something will take or what they should do differently? Anything like that that perhaps bridges that line a little too much?
No, I really try not to because I think
That's
every
good.
engineer is very different in the way that they approach a problem or a critical thinking equation or something of the sorts. Um, the way I even approach coding is so different than most. So, who am I to say, hey, let's try this different route? Instead, I like when we all work together, if they need help, they can come to me for help. I can help guide them, vice versa. And I hope that they also lean on their teammates in that sense. Because at the end of the day, I don't really know the code base as well as they do. So, who am I to kind of say, I guess?
That's great, though.
No,
That's a
that's
good answer because we have,
yeah.
like and Meg will attest to this as well, you, of course, Christina. Engineers are really freaking talented, like, they're
Yes.
so talented, so much skill, like, I actually love letting them just do their thing, like, obviously, we're not gonna wall out and just go right crazy, like, there's guidelines, but I love letting them just kind of come and it's not even it's like I love watching them do their thing and come back with, like, these really cool creations or, like, questions or proposals, etcetera, etcetera. I find that, like, if we give those folks their space to kinda do what they need to do, and we're working together and collaborating well, like, there's a lot of really good things that come out of this. It's not like you said, it's not like a sit in the corner of a room, don't talk to anyone, like, lob the ball over. It's a collaborative approach. Meg, I would love to hear if you have anything else to add to that, but that's my take on it.
I guess I would ask more of like a question on
Mhm.
that, more than like a take. I've worked with both introverted and extroverted engineers. And I feel like as a PM, I think there's a space here where we have an opportunity to empower our engineers to feel like more of the group, I guess is the best way to word it. And I think that I found more success working with engineers when there's more of an opportunity to bring them out of just this engineering role, to include them in projects that are not just coding, to have one-on-one conversations and talk about their lives. I know it's really weird, but I would just, I guess, put that question back on y'all. Have you had that experience? And maybe from a software engineering perspective, like, would you agree with that, Christina?
Absolutely. I think it's actually extremely important to almost give them that creative freedom. I think as PMs, we give them a set of parameters, guidelines, and almost leave it open ended so they can get creative. And if they have an idea, they're more than welcome to communicate with us. Or, for example, we have like a UX UI meeting every Friday, and that's just a space where we get a chat, how we're feeling on the product side, how engineers are feeling on the engineering side. No one has to talk if they don't want to. But it's a space for all of us to just discuss what's maybe a good idea, maybe what's not a good idea. Um, and yeah, I think just allowing them to be creative because again, you just don't want to box an engineer in to just code away like a robot. Like that's not them, I guess. But yeah,
Exactly, exactly. That's like it's so funny too. I find when, like, they have the more context, it's like the why and why it's important and the impact their work is having, they can see that. It's been really great. So I've actually I've had tech leads come into discovery calls with me with customers, and I'm like, "Hey," like, totally optional, right? You always wanna be mindful of how people like to work and all that jazz, but I've asked them, I'm like, "Hey, I'm going into this call, we're gonna dig into this particular thing that, our pod works on. Do you wanna join?" And a lot of times they'll say, "Yeah." And they'll just listen, they'll, like, camera off kinda listen, but it gives them that like, real life story/customer slash customer POV that they don't always get because they're busy doing their work, which is coding. So, I love being able to kind of incorporate their genius basically into many different areas and see where they can be creative. Because if they're more bought in, it's with anyone too, really. Like, the more bought in someone is, the more, like, creative and, like, invested they are in solving problems. So, yeah, that was a great segue, Meg. I like that.
Yeah, I think that just to your point, Santi, like when they see a live pain point or they experience it themselves, they're so much more bought in. And I think that from my experience, I've seen like kind of like two ways of approaching an engineering team. And it's like keep them in their code because that's what they're good at, right? Or like we've just discussed, pulling them out of like this just space of coding and that's it. That's all they're good at. And so I think the more we bring them out of that space of just like boxed coding, the more creative they feel and the better they are at solving problems. And then obviously more bought in, I think they are to the culture as well because they feel more creative. So I love that y'all have experienced that as well. Um, I don't think you mentioned this, so please, I apologize if you did. But one thing that I wanted to ask Christina as like kind of ties into our next question is how long have you been an associate PM so far? So how early are you into your PM career?
I would say pretty early. I am about professionally about a year and 4 months. I checked my
Okay,
LinkedIn the other day. I know it's really specific. So about a year. And then, I mean, if you count my college days, I would say approximately 2 years. But I mean, that was a really small team, so sometimes I don't really count it. But yeah, so about a year.
cool. No, I love that. That kind of just like goes into our next question. I wanted to kind of talk about like what you've learned so far being early in that career and like what surprised you. And so I think it's really important for the listeners to know like where you're at as far as early because sometimes when you see those roles that are out there early sometimes means 5 years. So I think it's really important that we highlight like what early actually means on this episode. So thank you for sharing that. So if you could just share a little bit about like what's surprising you so far in your career, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I think the community um really surprised me. I think in other spectrums of a business, it can tend to be a little bit more competitive. So it tends to be a little bit more cutthroat or, someone's out to get your job. And that can happen, I would assume, in this space also, because, no one's perfect and everyone wants to succeed in their career. But I found that the product community is especially helpful in the sense of like building each other up. I don't see a lot of, condescending individuals saying like, "Oh, well, you need to be doing this and and you just I everyone I've connected with, they just want to help. I always ask, "Oh, what's your favorite book?" They always tell me, "Oh, this book is awesome because it helps, you communicate better to your team," or this book and this book. That's just one example. Or they'll just give career advice or I mean, anything under the sun, they'll just try and help the best way that they can. And they'll always be so gracious to give them, times on their calendar. And I know we're always in meetings and whatnot. So to even get a chance to talk during the workday, it's just an awesome community. Like in the end
I
of the
love
day. So
that.
yeah.
Santa, you know what question's coming next to follow up that. Do you feel like the product community is gated at all?
Yes, I
Ha ha
think.
ha.
I think.
Validation for Megan.
Meg doing discovery, everyone. Just type.
I think. I think it could be. It depends the way you look at it. I think if you really want to break into it, I think you can in the sense of reaching out to individuals like cold outreach. Everyone's going to be super receptive to you, but that's only if you really go out there and, you advocate for yourself. That's a big business term is just advocating for yourself. But the parts where I think it's hard is you see job descriptions, you need 1 to 2 years product experience, and these are for entry level jobs. Um, it's just the experience factor is, I think, the part that kind of gatekeeps people from pursuing product. Or you have individuals in business and the job needs a computer science degree, which is very understandable in some ways. But I think, I think just any person who's passionate about a product and is interested in the ins and outs of it, I think they are able to do it. It's just breaking into it. That's just the hard part.
Yep.
I'm not saying anything else. I just needed my question out there.
I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, I'm really curious because that's such a topic of discussion these days.
I don't have an opinion.
Meg, I you lying on this podcast. The way you straight face that and everything, like, no way, dude.
I think that product management is the most gate-kept role in tech. I think with product management specifically, the more people that you talk to, the more it can feel like, no, don't break into product management because the role, like, it's we're full. That's how it can feel to me. Like, we're full. That's how
Yeah.
it feels like. I'm using that as an example because, I hear that a lot about, like, Washington, where I live. I live in Washington State, and I'm using this as an example because, a lot of the cities here are very full. It's a very, like, big area, but a lot of the cities here were like packed to the brim. It's hard to get a doctor's appointment, stuff like that. So people will like go on Reddit and say, like, hey, I'm looking at coming to this city. We want to move. And people respond, we're full. And that's how it feels about product management to me. If someone reaches out and they're like, I'm trying to break into product management, for me, it feels like we're full. And that has been my personal thought about product management for a long time. But
Interesting.
I'm gonna stop there because I know Santi's just like, "Shut up, Megan."
No, no, that's fair because to the point of the resources, I do feel like there are some folks creating resources that are genuinely trying to help. The trick though to it goes like to Meg's route. Some might feel fluffy, some of them might not seem to be, that like almost like too salesy. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
almost have that
Yes.
vibe. And of course that's the point, but it just might not come off as a genuine. So for the folks that are creating kind of free resources like us and other people in the community, like it's hard to pin them down as someone wanting to get into product management because you don't know who to follow. You don't know who's been around the block, who's got some really good insights. There's so many creators on LinkedIn. It can be a little bit overwhelming. So I would say that like even just from a strict content and like learning digesting perspective it can be very difficult 100%. And then to Meg's point about the we're full, that's yeah, like I can definitely see how some folks might have that thought or opinion or they have kind of like a negative view on product right now just because of how many different points of views and like different like you should different ways you should be doing it, shouldn't be doing it, etc. That can all come into play too, but I always look at it and like think a little bit like that product isn't really a cookie cutter, right? Like how can realistically how can one say it's full when there's multiple ways that product can be done and arguably should be done in certain situations? I don't know, like that's why Meg's point's still very valid. So my challenge, I guess, to those folks that are kind of having that "we're full" mindset is like, why do you say that? Like, what's
Yeah.
It's
happening?
also like such a new role, right? It's a newer role. Every company does it differently. And if we look back at your journey, Christina, it's not linear, and none of them are. So, I mean, if we're trying to break into product management today, you're most likely not going directly from college. Could be, but most likely not going directly from college. It could more likely be from a different role. But I think the odds are more likely that you're pivoting from a different role or some different experience, things like that. Like a BDR, good example. So I think that the we're full mindset is just limiting, in my opinion. That's all. And I think that more people are having that mindset because of like a bad job market and there already being so many job seekers for product management roles with less jobs. So I think that that sometimes comes into play. In my opinion, I'm like, may the best product manager win, aspiring or not. That's my opinion.
But to both your guys' points, like Santi, you said it's super hard to find creators in the space. And I completely agree. I looked on LinkedIn, type in product. Where do you look? You can't look at anything. And Megan, to your point, of you're most likely gonna get a different job before you can get into product. I mean, I remember coming out of college, I couldn't even find an associate position. They're near to none. Like it's just so rare to find, and they require this experience. And I understand that they do want that experience, they want that business mentality, but it is just extremely difficult. So yeah.
I always think too, like so for our dedicated listeners, they're gonna hear repeat things. We love you guys. We appreciate you. Thank you. For the new listeners, here's what's up. This is what we do. Like, welcome. We're gonna reiterate it. No, but it's a good thing to cover, and it doesn't negate that it is a tough market. It doesn't negate like the things that are actually true, but it is an interesting way to think about it. Like product managers are doing, some of them are doing product work at companies that, and they're not called a product manager, right? So there's
So
just
true.
right, like there's so many different angles, different skills that you can develop and bring into a product type of role. Like there's hope, people. There's hope. It's all
There's
good.
hope. And honestly, I think that we have multiple guests on the podcast that have been doing that product work without that product title. So super highly recommend if you are listening to this episode right now and you're wondering if you could be that person, check out our episodes because there are multiple people that have been on the podcast that are doing product work without that product title. So just
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So speaking of this and pivoting into product and all that fun stuff, Christina, when you were pivoting, what challenges did you encounter getting that formal, full-time APM role?
And it's funny because we were just talking about the challenges coming into the role, and I would actually say it's imposter syndrome. Um, there's so many experienced, intelligent people out there who have all this experience. They're amazing people. And so when you step into the space, you're like, oh, this is a lot. And I mean, getting into the role, it in a way was just overwhelming because of that thought. Like, oh, am I doing this correct? Is this the way I should be doing it? Um, but I slowly learned that everyone has their own way of achieving the work that needs to be done. And I think it just takes communication with your team to kind of get on the same frequency. Um, but yeah, I would say imposter syndrome, and I still struggle with it today. So yeah,
Every single product person I've spoken to has imposter syndrome. Every
and
single one.
it's crazy. It's almost like a fake it till you make it mentality, but it's almost it gives me anxiety even thinking about that. I don't know. It's like you shouldn't have to fake a persona to achieve success, and not saying that everyone's faking it, but I think to achieve where you wanna go, you just have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions, and I think that's what takes growth and challenging yourself, and that's just kinda what gets you to the next level, and yeah.
You might throw up once or twice, but it's okay. We're growth.
I think it's why that this is one of the more challenging roles is because we're constantly second guessing ourselves, but we have to convince other people that we know what we're talking about and we aren't second guessing ourselves. And then on top of that, our leaders are also second guessing themselves, but they have to convince us that they aren't second guessing ourselves and they aren't second guessing us. So it's just like this constant circle of, oh, we all know what we're talking about. But in the back of our heads, we're like, we have no idea what we're talking about. And it's happening constantly. And so I think that that is why it's like one of the craziest, most exciting, chaotic, stressful. I don't know. What are the other things that you would call this role?
Ambiguous, like just the most unhinged.
Yeah. Like it's nuts. But it also, I mean, it's nice because just like you said earlier, Christina, the product community is great because we all can openly admit to ourselves that that is our daily life. So we don't have to hide that from each other. We don't have to hide that we're stressed when we go into meetings. We don't have to hide that it sucks when we're presenting a document that we don't even know is correct. Like we can all openly admit that we are also unsure of ourselves constantly. And like the conversations that Santi and I have had is that like is VP all the way down to associate. So you just have to remember, even the conversations that you're having with a VP, he probably or she probably feels the same way. So just keep that in mind.
Oh, that's good to know too, and I think you said it beautifully.
Yeah. We're all stressed and we're all unsure. But I get what you're saying, like trying to fake it is the hard part. And I work directly with like CEOs, COOs, CTOs, like because I work at small startups. And so I feel like I feel that constantly because I'm going in, I'm talking to like literal founders of these companies and I'm pretending like I know what's going on. So I get it. It's rough. So but yeah, it's a good time. I think that the role is exciting and yeah, maybe that's why it's go so gate kept. See, I'm growing.
Hey everyone, it's Sandy popping in real quick to talk about Prodfolio. As we know, storytelling is a massive part of product management, but sometimes we struggle to tell our own. Meg and I are no exception, and after having many conversations with other product people, we noticed a trend. Lots of other PMs struggle to tell their story too. So, like this podcast, Meg and I set off to help close this gap we were seeing, which is where Prodfolio comes in. Prodfolio is a portfolio building tool that helps product managers tell their story in a way that hiring managers are actually interested in seeing, all in a fraction of the time as other methods. Show your work, own your impact. Link in the description. We've covered so much in this one episode. We're fantastic. What a fantastic time. I did want to circle back to two things you said earlier in the episode, just from like a kind of like bonus content perspective. So you talked about networking, and we heard this in our episode we recorded last week. That was huge, 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 huge for this particular individual and a class you took. So my first question is, what was the class that you took that you found to be helpful for you, like learning more of the PM skill set? Because I know we covered and we've said in other episodes, it's not going to look the same everywhere, but there are some foundational things that are good to have as a PM. So curious what that class was. And I'd love if you could spend a couple minutes and share maybe your best tips for networking and how you got yourself out there and advocated for yourself.
Absolutely. So the PM class that I took in college, it pretty much was a long time ago, so let me recollect really quick. But it just pretty much went over the broad basics of, you know, what's it called? It's like a formal word of functional requirements and non-functional requirements. How to state requirements in a more technical way and in a non-technical way. Um, the class would make us write extensive documents like product requirements document. There's another one. I forget the name of it. Uh, maybe I'll remember again. But it was like just a class that made us write very typical types of documents that a job would require from a product manager per se. And actually, my professor he had recommended a couple Coursera courses, and I think you could actually enroll in them for free if you say that you're a student. And technically, if you're learning, you are a student. So um I don't know exactly the way, but he told us to click a couple things. I think there's like a little bypass link at the when you enroll into a course, there's a little bypass link at the bottom. This was a couple years ago. I don't know if they updated that. But that was super helpful. And they would just tell us about different graphs, different methodologies. So you have your, agile waterfall, very typical, but you also have your spiral method, which is used heavily in healthcare, and very high, just places where you just need that extra cushioning that you're not going to screw things up. Like for example, if you're making like a robot for a heart surgery, like you have to make sure that's going to work, or else you're liable. um, and just stuff like that, and just very I know I keep saying very basic fundamentals, um but I'm sure if you type in on Google product management basic fundamentals, there's going to be dictionaries, and then you can kind of go in from the dictionary, research what a certain document is, and I'm sure Google's going to tell you an image or an example of that sort. I think product, a lot of it is you just have to immerse yourself in it. So, if anything, I always recommend what is something that really bothers you in the world, and just deconstruct it, and how can you make it better? And then you can start building your own portfolio. I think you guys are actually coming out with a website that helps you showcase your different projects and whatnot. So I would just say deconstruct it. See what else you can kind of come up with. Work with Figma. I love Figma. Shapes pretty colors. That's the thing I love to do. And you can also do animations. I don't know. In my company, we use Figma quite a bit. A lot of PM courses, they say you have to pay for them, but most of the time you can find it for free if you just keep digging. So um, there's that. I know that was a little bit of a long-winded answer.
Yeah, no,
I
we're
love
here for the
that though.
resources. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the networking. That is probably the hardest part. um, so you kind of have to get past your ego and your pride. I'm gonna be very real with that. When I graduated college, because I was a part of Greek life, we thankfully had like a portal of everyone who's ever graduated. And so from that portal, and I'm sure colleges also have the alumni portal with everyone who's graduated, you just kind of search up, even on LinkedIn, search up, I went to Florida Gulf Coast. So Florida Gulf Coast University engineering or product or something with keywords that with what you want to do. And just start reaching out. Hey, I'm Christina. I'm a new grad. I am interested in going to product. I was curious if I could just chat with you for 30 minutes about your role. And that's where you kind of go in and chat about their role. If they have an opening at their company, maybe you can kind of soft launch. Hey, I'm looking for a job. But I would never go in for the hard ask because I think you want to get to know a person first. And I think if the conversation's going well, I think that's when it is polite to ask for, hey, like I really enjoyed this conversation. I really like your company. Would it be okay if you offered me a referral for so and so job? And if they say no, that's the worst thing that they're going to say. It's you have to get into your mind the worst thing that they're going to say is no, and that's it.
Did you
And
track those conversations anywhere?
um, sometimes
Sometimes.
if the conversation didn't go too well,
Which we all know
um,
happens
it
because I've
happens.
had that happen. I've had a couple awkward ones myself.
Yeah, it's just your personalities don't click,
Yeah.
which is okay, and I tend to just, I'm glad I met you. I don't think this
Yeah.
is, like a solid fit, to continue like this mentorship or whatever. But tracking conversations, usually, I am pretty good at keeping a little mental memory, but other people I know aren't. So I always like to keep a little post-it note, or maybe if you have Notion or some type of documenting app or an Excel, you can just put a little note of a couple topics that you spoke about last meeting. And the next meeting, you can talk about something new or, you know, s- yeah, do stuff like that. And I always recommend to keep following up. Maybe I think it just depends on the vibe. I like to follow up maybe every 3 months, 6 months. It depends, maybe monthly. Um, yeah.
So you keep the combos warm now, or was it just when you were job searching?
Um, More so when I was job searching, but I think I do a lot better of a job now because I'm more in a professional space. I think
Yeah,
before I found it very difficult to carry on conversations or to create topics that were new to talk about.
that makes sense. I we had someone on the podcast that said that he sends updates to people in his like very similar situation like you, like people that he's just connected with, and he sends like a monthly update to all of them about like what's going on in his like professional life. So just to share that, I mean, I guess like technically it'll come out on the podcast, but not till spring. So just to share that with you as like a tip, if that's something you ever wanted to do, I thought that was really intriguing because I've never thought about that, and I've never really kept like a CRM of people that I've talked to, but it's a really interesting idea if you're keeping those conversations warm. It's like a really neat idea to keep them warm, but also like this is what's going on in my life. Like, what's new with you without it being like or too formal? It's like still informal, you know? But I thought that was really interesting and it keeps it very low lift for him because it's the same content for everyone. Or if he wants to personalize a couple of lines, it's really simple. So that was really cool. So just to share that tip with you if you're keeping those combos warm.
No, that is a great tip. I think I've heard that somewhere, but I
Yeah.
think it's almost like a virtual postcard.
Yes, that's totally what
Uh,
it is. I thought it was a really neat idea. So just to share.
Yeah, that's the next business right there, virtual postcard.
Let's
Actually
build
thought
it
about
in
that the other
Lovable.
day.
Let's go vibe code, guys.
Christina, jump in. Jump in.
Hey, it's funny. I've hit kind of a plateau, I would say. I want something that will, you know, I want to work on. So if you guys have any openings, I guess, with your vibe coding, I'm here.
We're a constantly we're kind of a mess. We call each other like squirrel brain because we'll like have an idea, be working on it, and then in the middle of the night, most of the time it's in the middle of the night, we'll be talking about the idea and like what we're gonna do with it, the one we're already working on. And then in the middle of like a Slack thread, we'll put a new idea and like start talking about it and then like go back to the other idea. We're a mess. But
That's how
like
it goes.
I know. We're just like a mess. We're like she's crying because it's true. We're just we did it last night and then I just put a squirrel emoji in the Slack thread and she said that should be our mascot. We're a
See?
mess.
And I started working on the idea this morning when I was at my doctor's appointment waiting. I was like, "That's a great idea. I have nothing else to do," and I just went put the
We're
feeler
just
out.
like ongoing all the time. It's a problem. And like I think at some point this summer we hit like a little bit of a burnout because we were working like 5 ideas at the same time. We're a
Yeah.
problem.
This is why this season is coming out in the spring.
But I would say, like, that's, like, I think the hardest part of development. You could just come up with so many different ideas, and you quite literally can't accomplish them all at the same time.
Yes,
But
exactly.
that's what makes product managers important.
There you go. And
Yeah.
I think that the vibe coding has been a problem because like you can spin up ideas and like look at them and then you're like, oh my God, this could be so cool.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can't slow it down.
It's
uh,
funny. Me and my partner were actually talking about vibe coding earlier today, and he discovered that um, it was like we're talking about API keys. Sorry, this is completely off topic, but we're talking about API keys, and on GitHub, people have exposed their secret keys, like they've deployed
no.
it. Yeah, so I think we predict this was just like one of those thinking conversations. We
Yeah.
predict that there's going to be a lot of security breaches because of how many vibe coders there's going to be, and if you're not
Yes.
kind of aware of those risks and
Yes.
whatnot. So anyway, yeah, it's cool.
My husband is majoring in cybersecurity and he's looking forward to that era.
Yeah.
So I
He's
know that
ready.
he's
It's just
looking forward to that
messy.
era. Santi, I know
Yeah.
you have one more question, and I don't remember if you have it written down. So if you don't, it's on the mind. But if you do, let's rock it because we're hitting our moment.
Yeah. This is the moment.
She's
All right, Christina,
she's
this one
ready.
we didn't prepare you for because we like to throw people off with these
Yeah.
types of questions. What's your red flag as a product manager?
Oh man. Good question. Um Honestly, I love to think about so many different things at the same time. I find myself getting very distracted, and that could be like ADHD kind of playing into it, but I think, you just want to help the business and you want to help your engineers, but you want to accomplish all these things because you have to accomplish them because it's quite literally your job. Um, so I guess like kind of going down too many different rabbit holes at the same time and not being able to focus on one thing. And because I mean, you can get it all done, but I think it just takes a longer period of time doing different things, rather just focusing on one thing and just getting it done, within the day or maybe 2 days or whatnot. So I would say
Santi and I
that.
don't have that problem, right, Santi?
Not in the slight. I can't relate in the slightest. Don't even know what that means. Context switching? Not at all. Single fear.
So relatable. That is so relatable. And like, I think everyone would have that red flag for at the PM because we all have that problem. And it's like so hard. I was watching one of our episodes this morning and we were talking about prioritization and like how we prioritize as like product people. And there's like so many different ways to prioritize. And I don't know if there's like the one and like how we prioritize work. I don't think there's like the way. And like I feel like every company would answer that differently, every product person would answer that differently, and every day would be different. So I don't know if there's like a way to prioritize our work.
Yeah. No, but I agree because an engineer can come to you in the morning. Like, let's say you have it blocked off for emails and, random administration stuff. But an engineer can come to you randomly in the middle of that block and disrupt you of your work. And so you're kind of, you're just not using that focus time. I mean, I guess you could wait, but sometimes engineers don't like to wait. So,
That's a great answer. So good call out. And that was the right question. So good call out, Santi. But I know we're almost at time, so I have to be our time person. Otherwise, Santi will let us go, go, go. So I have to watch the time for us all. But this has been
okay.
incredibly fun. I think this is a great episode. I think we covered so much in this episode. Is there anything we did not cover that you wanted to say on the episode?
No. Everyone go check out the rest of the episodes. They're awesome.
We always provide your link for your LinkedIn so people can connect with you in the description. So everyone connect with Christina. And thank you so much for taking your time to come on and, give us some of your background and talk about your role. It was really great to have you on. And Santi, anything else you want to say?
No, that was perfect. You nailed it. So, so phenomenal. So many insights. Thank you again. Just very grateful to have you on.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. It's been such a great time.